How's it going, everybody? And welcome to the Voice of College Football USC Coliseum Chronicles Live. I'm Kasey Kazliner, joined alongside my colleague Terence Holton. And we're a new duo here on this show, both USC students, very passionate about USC sports and talking about them. Terence, you want to tell the viewers a little bit about yourself, as, of course, we're both new hosts on this show.
Yeah, no, as Kasey mentioned, we're both journalism. Or no, I'm just a journalism student here. Kasey's a comms major. We're both students here at USC. I'm a junior. He's a sophomore. Been covering USC football past 3 years for me personally. Really care about it a lot. Passionate, love it, and happy to be covering it more.
Yeah, ditto. Basically, love calling this team play by play, whatever it is. The storylines are pretty immense here, honestly. I mean, we'll talk about that in a moment, but especially now, NIL, it favors a school like USC, and it definitely
shout out Chad Bowden.
It creates a lot of good storylines. We'll talk about Chad Bowden later on as well, with Notre Dame on the schedule this year, of course, like every other year. But so SC with a pretty interesting schedule this year. Before we get into it, Terence, what were your initial thoughts seeing the 2025 opponents, especially, weeks 1 and 2, you have a former FCS school, and then you have Georgia Southern.
Yeah, I mean, this is a lot. I'm not going to say it's a lot easier schedule than last year, but you don't got to play at Michigan. You don't have LSU. I think it's definitely better. You start your game off. We're going to talk about the two games, but Missouri State, Georgia Southern, it's definitely a lot easier than starting off with LSU. And obviously they won that, but it's different. LSU than Michigan was it week 3, week 4. I feel more confident in this team than I did last year, to be honest.
Yeah, and they have a year under their belt, in the Big Ten. Playing that away Big Ten schedule can be really tough. Of course, you still have some tough away games. You have to go to the frozen tundra of Notre Dame. You have to go to Autzen Stadium. There's a tough, slate of matchups. But, I feel like this team last year had the opportunity to kind of have that measuring stick, and they didn't really pass the litmus test with it. But, I mean, it's tough when you – yeah, you're 6-6, but it's also tough though when you have a quarterback controversy midseason. You have a bunch of underperforming players. Zachariah Branch, one of them. The offense. I mean, the one thing that stays consistent is you have Lincoln Riley at coach, and we know that he's going to pass the ball every instance he can. Mm-hmm. However, I think now that you know that you have 2 receivers that are blue chippers this year, and not like 5 and 3 of them are good.
Yeah,
I think that really helps.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, one thing you talked about Lincoln Riley, they passed it a lot. I was a little frustrated in how little they ran the ball. Woody Marks had a fantastic year, and I wish they had gone to him more, to be honest. Quentin Joyner, he was good as well, obviously now at Texas Tech. But, I feel more confident in this team this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like this is a good point to maybe just go into each game by game. And so, of course, like we mentioned, SC has a pretty easy schedule to start things, playing a team that just moved to the FBS level in Missouri State. So they were in the FCS last year. They moved to Conference USA. They have their quarterback pretty good. Jacob Clark threw for over 3,600 yards last year.
He can throw the ball.
Yeah, he can sling it. Very good passing team in the FCS last year. They didn't run the ball very well last year. So I think that's kind of a good chance week 1 to give SC's defensive line, especially some younger guys on the defensive line, an opportunity to, show what they have week 1. I'm looking at a guy like Jakeem Stewart to get some reps, true freshman. He's like one of the only true freshmen that probably will get looks on defense. And so I think that'll be an interesting thing to look for here in the first game of the season.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This is a tune-up game. That's all it should be. That is what this game is. I mean, USC obviously keeping the streak there. I believe it's the only Power 5 opponent to never Power 5 team to never schedule an FCS opponent. Barely skating that line with this one, but it counts. It still counts. The streak lives on. This is a tune-up game. I want to see some Houston Longstreet after Jaden Mayava. Maybe the other way around. Maybe we'll see more of a battle. Who knows? But I want to see the freshmen. I want to see the young guys. I completely agree with you. It's an easy win.
Do you think we see Houston Longstreet as early as like the second quarter? Perhaps?
No, not that early. I think they definitely. I think third, because you think about this is back in the 2023. It was against Stanford. They were up, I want to say 42-0 at halftime. We saw Miller Moss the entire second half. I think Caleb Williams maybe played, one drive? So I want to see him. But I don't think he'll be that early.
Yeah, I think also like Corey Sims, Xavier Jordan, Tanuk Hines. These are all either redshirt freshmen or true freshmen. I think, a chance for them to show out. I think USC has been plagued by its receiver depth. I talked about that earlier last year, but I think, a guy like Jacoby Lane, you're not necessarily going to go to him every single, part of the field. Let's just say, I mean, he's a red zone threat.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think having guys like that to show out for early on, I think also the running back depth, we'll see a lot of that in a game like this. We can expect Wayman Jordan to get the starting nod. But a guy like Eli Sanders,
I don't know if we can expect that.
Why not?
I just think it's going to be more of a committee. I don't know if you can definitively say it's going to be one guy is the thing. I think that you'll see a committee between Sanders, Jordan, I think, and Brian Jackson. I think all of them. So,
well, sure. I think you'll see a committee as in like Lincoln Riley hates throwing the ball consistently. So we'll see a group of guys that like collectively don't get as many touches as they deserve. But I think at the same time, like we saw the past few years, it was not a committee. And I feel like they arguably had a lot of good running back depth the past couple of years.
I think that there was more of an alpha guy, though. They brought in the past 2 years. There was 2 alpha guys from the SEC. You brought in Woody Marks. You bring in Marshawn Lloyd. Lloyd, yeah. Not Lynch. Confused. I'm always confusing those two. I don't think there's an alpha in this year's room.
Really? Waymon Jordan's not an alpha to you?
I think he's great. And if I had to pick someone to come out of that room to be the starter, it would probably be him. But I don't think you can definitively say he's the alpha.
Well, we'll see. I mean, it's early in spring camp. I think he is. Look, I think we can both admit we'd both be silently kind of biased against him because he's coming from the JUCO level. Like he's going to have that against him. But I mean, from his tape, he's looking very elite. Again, I think they're dominantly going to throw the ball. It's going to be different than last year. They're not going to necessarily have a Woody Marks as a safety valve every single play, but I think they're going to have some good depth. If a guy gets hurt, on the running back position, the fact that Brian Jackson's the running back 3 makes me very confident. I mean, he's very.
I think he's talented. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's move on to week 2 against Georgia Southern. Again, another lighter opponent. Trojans will see a familiar face, as you can see on the screen. Clay Helton is the coach for the Eagles. But what are your thoughts going into this game? It should be another tune-up game in theory.
It's a similar thing. Like I don't have that many thoughts on it. I mean, it's Clay Helton's return. That's pretty sweet. Obviously, neither of us were here for the Clay Helton era. We never experienced any of that. There's not a lot of thoughts. I mean, JC French is a decent quarterback. Not great, nothing special. There's nothing you can really point to other than this game should be a tune-up. This should be an easy win. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, they went 8-5 last year, Georgia Southern. They're in the Sun Belt Conference. It's not the top tier competition necessarily. Some changes on offense, like you said. But yeah, I mean, maybe a little bittersweet going up against Clay Helton. Maybe not. It should be another win for USC.
Let's be honest, it's not bittersweet. They didn't go out on the best of terms. If he had left after they won the Rose Bowl in 2017, it's bittersweet. They won 3 games and where he was fired mid-season. It's not bittersweet.
Well, that's the bitter part, right? Like, I mean, I think
if anything, it's just bitter, not bittersweet.
Well, look, I mean, he had some success for USC. Like that's the one.
Yeah.
There's I think I agree. The bitter is like 90%. It's like 10% sweet. It's like a bad cup of coffee, right? So so now we can actually talk about some real football. No disrespect to
the first
State or Georgia Southern, but we got. I mean, well, arguably Purdue is not a real football team, but that's a different discussion because they only won one Big Ten. Excuse me, they only won one game last year, and it was against Indiana State, Week 1, 49-0 final score, and then they did not win a single game after that. Thoughts on Purdue going into the season?
It's similar. It's it's not a lot. I think Devin Mockabee is a very solid running back. Quarterback is a question. You don't have a definitive guy. Malachi Singleton, obviously the transfer from Arkansas. It's another game. It's definitely not a tune-up. I'm not going to say that about a Big Ten opponent, especially when you're playing at them. Why am I forgetting? But at Purdue, obviously.
Lafayette. Yeah.
You there, Kasey?
Sorry, you were frozen on my end. But
fantastic. Did you
Yeah.
get any of that?
No, but I heard some of it. Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely an unpredictable matchup for the reasons that, of course, Purdue has a completely new coaching staff. So SC will actually see some familiar faces. Josh Henson is now with Purdue. He's their offensive coordinator. Charles Ross, wide receiver, is now with Purdue, former Trojan. And also for SC, DJ Wingfield, who will start at offensive line for them. He's playing against his former team. But Notre Dame was awful offensively last year. They were terrible. They averaged under 16 points per game.
You can use your game teams.
Yeah, their defense wasn't very good either. They had Hudson Card at QB. Didn't do much for him. I like the Malachi Singleton pickup. He looked very good against Tennessee in the limited snaps he had against them with Arkansas last year. Just one touchdown. He's a dual threat guy. I mean, I think that's going to make it a little bit more interesting than maybe we would have anticipated. They also got Monty Powell, a linebacker from UNLV. He's one of a few transfers they gotten, but I think he's one of my favorites. Had 3.5 sacks and 29 tackles. They also lost Max Clare, tight end. He's supposed to be a pretty high draft pick, maybe next year, out of the tight end position. And but the issue is Purdue just didn't add many guys in the transfer portal, and that comes with the completely new coaching staff, right? So yeah, Barry Odom trying to right the ship. I mean, I'm sure they'll do better than last year, but it's a tough team. It's a team that I don't mean tough as in level of competition. I mean tough as in they're in a tough position right now. So I think this is a win for USC pretty comfortably. I think this is a game that should be over by the third quarter. But the tough part, and I want to relay this to you a little bit as well. We saw how much USC struggled on the road, no matter who the opponent was last year. I mean, even against a team like Maryland, who they were very much supposed to beat. A team like Minnesota, Minnesota wasn't horrible, but that's a team that it should be beating.
Maryland
going on the road against a team like Purdue, I know it should be a win, but just given that SC on the road last year was so bad, does that change anything at all for you? Just even on the scoreboard?
I think as on the scoreboard, if I were to I'd say betting on how much USC wins by spread, then yeah. But I don't think so. I don't think it alters the ending of the game for not at all. As you said, this should be an easy win. I'm assuming it will be. It almost certainly will be. I can't trust it anymore. After what we've seen the past 2 years, you just can't trust it.
Well, fair enough. You can go to Michigan State now, because that's going to be an interesting matchup, I think, as well. For me, I think Michigan State being decent relies on Aiden Childs and his ability to actually step up. Last year, he didn't really show his arm much at all. To be fair, his team around him wasn't great. It's actually going to be a homecoming game for him as well. He's from Long Beach, so a chance for him to come home, which would be probably cool for him. He's an exciting guy, exciting player. But again, the longest pass of his career is 26 yards. It's not very good. He had a good game against Maryland last year at the end of the year, and I think that kind of gives them some excitement, close to 400 yards passing that year. But it was a rough, season for him overall. Their O-line's revamped. They got a new running back from Sacramento State, Elijah Tolliver. He's supposed to be pretty good. New receiver room, pretty much outside of Childs, a pretty new team. Their defense was pretty bad last year. Wasn't horrible.
It definitely was not good though.
It was not good. Yeah. They're bringing in Grady Kelly and David Santiago on the defensive line front. Those guys should start. But losing Charles Brantley, cornerback to Miami, is a big loss. I think USC wins this again pretty significantly. You're back at home. It's a pretty weak team. I think we saw last year, some similar opponents that kind of look like this, like a Rutgers team last year, decent QB, but just not a great team around them. So I think SC wins this game. But what are your thoughts on Michigan State?
Kasey, you forgot to mention one guy. Nick Marsh is a dog. As a freshman, he had almost 700 yards and 3 touchdowns. I do agree with you that Childs, this game very much depends on him. I think Jonathan Smith is a good coach. You see what he did to Oregon State. They were very solid there for 2 years now. From Portland, kind of biased towards them a little bit. But it depends on how Childs can get going, get moving, all sorts of that stuff. I don't have faith in him to throw the ball downfield to get it to Nick Marsh. I think Marsh would, I'm not going to say he's going to benefit from a transfer. I'm not going to say that about anybody, but I think he'd put up a lot bigger numbers with a better quarterback and a better team around him. So I'm not going to, I think USC, I'm not going to say comfortably. I'm going to be honest. Because this team is talented, Michigan State, I would say USC wins by 10. And I don't think that's comfortable. I think it's like a 35, it's not 10, but 35, like, I don't know, 22, 35, 28, something like that.
Yeah, I'd be inclined to agree. I think USC wins by 2 touchdowns. Like, not like a blowout, but certainly maybe they start off a little slow. We saw like the Wisconsin game last year. I could see it kind of going like that. Where you start off slow and then finally pick up a rhythm. But yeah, I mean, the reason why I didn't really mention Marsh is because I feel like while they have some talent offensively, a lot of that gets hindered by the fact that Aiden Childs is the quarterback. And no disrespect to him, but like I feel like it's a tough spot to be in as a receiver where your quarterback doesn't really throw deep. Not bad short. I mean, Aiden Childs can throw the ball pretty well short, but I feel like
any Division I quarterback should be able to do that though.
Yeah, exactly. But my point is though, against a team like SC that like is sort of finding a new identity in the secondary, I think that's where they would try to expose SC. And I don't know if they'll be able to do that, even with a guy like Marsh.
Yeah, I don't know. The secondary for USC is obviously questionable. I mean, obviously bringing back Kamari Ramsey is huge, but they lost basically the entire cornerback room. I mean, obviously DeCarlos Nicholson's still here, but it's questionable. That's why obviously the Big Ten isn't really a throw-in conference. Thank goodness for that. But I don't trust the pass game. Obviously, last year the run game was difficult to say the least, and the passing defense was pretty decent. I'd maybe reverse it this year, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, you also have Marcellus Williams.
I was about to mention him. Yeah, he's talented. He's very athletic.
Yeah. I mean, while we're at it, I mean, of course, we're going game by game, but let's talk a little bit about the USC defense in a little more detail. Because the D line looks like it'll be the strongest asset. Of course, Eric Henderson is probably one of the best recruiters in the nation, hands down, not just by a D line coach, but by any coach, I think. I mean, we saw what he's been able to do in the 2026 class already. But in 2025, they're not super reliant on transfers. Keyshawn Silver's the main one. He's nose tackle
too.
Jamal Jarrett. Jamal Jarrett. I don't know if he's going to start because
it's like both those guys. It's like they're so big, you have to rotate them in and out is the thing.
Yeah, but I think like
guys.
But like to be fair, like I mean the team's D line last year was not good. We can admit that. I mean it was pretty bad.
They weren't big enough.
Yeah, but like Anthony Lucas is back.
He's good.
He's got a lot of potential. Like I think he could be like a day 1 or day 2 pick in the NFL. You have Devin Tompkins, you have Cameron Fountain, who they're very high on. They're very high on him right now. He's young. Yeah.
One of the best freshman edge rushers in the country, in my opinion.
You have
the end of the season.
Eric Gentry for another season, who was looking like one of the best linebackers in the conference.
Yeah, and obviously, so Michigan he went down. Right? Because he's obviously struggled with injuries. He's fantastic, though. He had an awesome game versus LSU. He's great. And it's just he needs to stay healthy. That's his issue.
And I think the big thing, too, is we didn't even talk about the D-line depth yet. Because the depth last year was so depleted. Like, like a guy would get hurt. Yeah. And there'd be nobody there. Like, now you have Jakeem Stewart. You have Jamal Jarrett if he doesn't start. You have Braylon Shelby, who looked very good in limited action. He's if he doesn't transfer out, he could play another year as well. Anthony Beavers, like there's a lot of depth on this team. Elijah Newby, like there's a lot of guys on this team that you have to always anticipate injuries just because that's the nature of football. And it looks like the depth is going to be really, really stout for this team.
Yeah. The defensive line, I've been saying, I think it's probably the deepest group on the team if we had to really go position by position. Obviously, wide receiver is always great, but I think the defensive line is going to be really good, which is that's been a problem the past 3 years. And I feel confident in them stopping the run, getting to the quarterback as well.
Yeah, I mean, you lose Gavin Meyer, who was pretty good.
Yeah.
But other than that, I feel like as obvious as it sounds, the additions definitely outweigh the subtractions.
Yeah.
But let's continue back with the season. We're approaching the midway point. Illinois is next in Champaign. Luke Altmaier comes back. He's, I'd say he's a top QB in the Big Ten. He's probably in the top echelon. Yeah, of course. But like you mentioned, it's not like a super QB heavy,
conference
by any means. But what are your thoughts on Illinois just initially?
Look, I'm just gonna say I think Altmaier is probably a top 3 quarterback in the Big Ten, and I think he's really slept on. I think he's easily a dark horse for the Heisman. He was having a fantastic year last year at the Illini. Obviously, he led them in that win over South Carolina in it was not the Bahamas Bowl. Which bowl was it? It was him and it was Shane Beamer and Bieniemy got into it.
I did watch it.
Yeah, it was funny. I think he's a fantastic quarterback, and I think that I'm going to be honest. I think this is the first loss for USC. I think you have to go to Champaign. It's relatively early in the year. Obviously, they kind of ramp up the opponents as the season goes on. I think they lose this one. I think this is the first loss of the year.
Well, here are my thoughts on Illinois. They were like you mentioned, a sleeper team last year, and the thing that impressed me about them the most is they weren't flashy at all. Like they're not a team that's gonna pull out a bunch of gadgets on you. They're not gonna do things that necessarily blow your head off, but they're gonna win football games, and they're gonna do it pretty under the radar. Like Luke Altmaier is the perfect example of that. He's not a flashy QB at all, but he can win them football games, and They finished the year on a 4-game win streak. They were a sleeper college football playoff team. Like I mentioned, they weren't flashy. They didn't score a lot of points last year. That was their issue. They didn't score a lot. Yeah, and their defense wasn't amazing either. But their offense was good enough to win those types of games that were close. And like I mentioned, they didn't have to score a lot of points doing that. But like you mentioned, Luke Altmaier, he had over 2,700 yards last year. 22-6 touchdown to interception ratio. It's very good. He can sling it. He's also going to have a new transfer target at receiver in Hudson Clement.
Just about to mention him. Yeah. It's a big one. He had 750 yards and 5 touchdowns as a sophomore at West Virginia. It's a good one.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think it's a winnable game for USC. Just because Illinois' O-line was not very good last year. They allowed 2.5 sacks per game. That was the 5th most in the Big Ten. I know they have, some stuff they'll move around, but we just talked about how good the D-line was for USC. I think that's the difference. I think they're going to win this football game. I think it'll be tough. I think it's going to be a 3-point game, but we'll see. I think it's a test for the D-line, and SC wins by 1 score. That's what I see.
Look, like Kasey, you mentioned in the Purdue game, USC in away games, it's tough for them. They didn't win those away games. I think you're going to a harder environment in Champaign, and you're playing a much better team, a team who, in my opinion, maybe this is a hot take. I think that they were much better than Indiana last year. Indiana, who made the CFP. I thought Illinois was much better than them. So I just think overall, I think they lose this game. I think it's a better team, and you're playing in a harder environment.
I'd agree actually with I like that take on the Indiana piece there, but I think the difference is Indiana has Curtis Rourke, who can be a game wrecker. Not that Luke Altmaier isn't, but Luke Altmaier is a plug and play, tried and true quarterback. He's going to win you football games that way. Whereas I feel like Curtis Rourke can be a game wrecker. I also think, I think
I would personally take Altmaier over Rourke.
Really?
Yeah. Last year for sure.
I don't know. I think Indiana's better coached. I think Signelli too is
Signetti. Wait, did I say
Signetti?
Did I say Signetti? Whatever. Yeah, sorry, go on.
I think, he's I don't know. I think it's a toss up. They both finished around the same area in the standings, of course. But Indiana found a way to sneak into the college football playoff. I don't know. I see your reasoning there. I just think that the O-line vulnerabilities for Illinois last year are going to hinder Altmaier. If you hinder Altmaier, that's all they have. I mean, look, they're a good football team, but it runs through him. They're not a deep team by any means. I don't know. That's how I see it.
That's fair. It's all fair. They totally can win that game. Don't get me wrong. It's not like I just 100% believe that USC is going to lose, but I don't think they're.
Fair enough. While we're at it, we have some comments here. Just want to acknowledge everybody who tuned in. Trojan Fight says, we will see how the D-line does. Last year, of course, they struggled pass protection as well. That's a good stat. Dead last in Big Ten pressures in 2024. I mean, you go out and you recruit and you develop some of these guys. We'll see how that changes this year. Certainly will be a test. And I think that's why they got to really hammer it early on and use that depth.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. I mean, I think just even watching the game, I think the casual fan could tell that USC was never getting to the quarterback on pass plays. And even against most run, they were not ever getting in the backfield. I think now that you're developing these players, you brought in a lot of guys. You brought in those run stuffers like Jarrett and Silver. I think we'll see a lot more of getting to the quarterback and getting in the backfield.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think that'll be a big test against a team like Illinois, especially on the road. I think up until that point, like I think it's generally easier to get to a guy like Aiden Childs. Even though he is pretty like mobile, he can move around. But I think a guy can't really sling it. I think that'll be a good test for him. And of course, those first 3 weeks against Missouri State, Georgia Southern, and Purdue as well, because I think like they're really going to have a big opportunity to gain that experience in sort of like winnable, not just winnable games, but games that they should be dominating. Sorry.
Just one thing. It is pretty interesting. I'm just looking at like the weeks. They just kind of slowly ramp up the games in difficulty, just in my opinion. We'll get in one of those now. But I think that overall that could be very helpful. Just you're overall seeing a talent increase over time. So
yeah, maybe except for UCLA at the end of the year, but
at the end of the year, it's really just the first 7 weeks of the year, if we're being honest.
Yeah,
7 games.
Let's talk about Michigan, because I think this is a game that we could talk about for a long time.
Yeah.
Of course, SC lost to Michigan earlier in the season, or last year, 27-24. It was a game SC probably should have won. I think
100% should have won.
Yeah, I think Michigan's fans could even agree with that. Michigan went 8-5 last year. Kind of an impressive record for a team that didn't really have a quarterback, if we're being honest. You know, Davis Warren, Alex Orji were both just not very good QBs. They were also not very they were system QBs for that system that ran the ball a lot. But now you bring in a guy like Bryce Underwood, who has the potential to be, a future Heisman winner, a future first-round pick. And so, of course, a lot of losses for Michigan.
Prediction for a guy who has not stepped on the field yet.
I mean, come on, he's a 5-star QB. Those guys always have those types of expectations.
That's fair.
Come on, people are saying the same thing about Longstreet. It's
what? No one is saying that about. With all due respect to USC's future quarterback, nobody is saying that.
Nobody's saying future first round pick, Heisman, contender. Come on, it's a 5-star QB. That's a textbook spot to be in for that.
He's not on the same pedestal as Underwood, in my opinion.
I'd agree with that, but I think, being a 5-star QB makes you it gives you that sort of title over other players. That's what I'm trying to say.
That's true.
And I think Underwood is a guy like that. He's a do-it-all quarterback. And I think he's going to be very, very good for Michigan. But we can't talk about Michigan without talking about their losses, because they lose 2 blue chip key players on the defensive side, or 3 on the defensive side, but 2 on the defensive line. Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham, and then Will Johnson. You also lose Colston Loveland, Miles Hinton on the O-line. There's others as well I'm missing, but those are the main ones I've identified.
Yeah, those are all 3 of those guys you mentioned on the defensive side, Grant, Graham, and Johnson, were all huge in their win over USC. Obviously, Johnson had the pick 6, but Graham and Grant were in the backfield. It felt like every single possession. Miller Moss was under pressure the entire time. It's massive losing those. I am more focused. I think Michigan's going to be completely fine on the defensive side. I am really intrigued by what they're going to be on offense, though, because it feels really different from last year.
100%, because you lose Kalel Mullings, you lose Donovan Edwards. They're bringing in the Alabama transfer Justice Haynes at running back.
I think he's going to be really good, to be honest.
Yeah, really high ceiling. Hasn't shown much yet in his college career, but really high ceiling. And I don't know if he's I don't know. I would ask you, do you think Kalel Mullings against USC
he went crazy?
I don't know if we see a game like that, on the road for Justice Haynes. Maybe we do. But I think the biggest thing for Michigan is they'll be able to pass the ball now. Last year, it was rough seeing a guy like Alex Orji against SC. I'm seeing a comment in the chat right now as well. The referees were pretty bad in that game.
That is very true. I kind of just refuse to. I kind of just refuse to acknowledge referees blowing calls is the thing, because It just happens is the thing. Like it just happens in every game. Like take a look at like the Nebraska game from last year for USC. There was very much a pass interference on the final play that was to the end zone that was intercepted. So I'm not going to complain about that is the thing.
Yeah, no, I agree. I never tend to blame the refs for a game like that, but also like at the same time, like looking at how many one score losses SC had on the road last year,
Yeah.
like I don't know, it came into play. But I think this is a win for USC. I think the reason why they lost to Michigan was they couldn't stop the run last year, and now with a better D line with a weaker backfield for Michigan, I think they can win this game. I think Bryce Underwood is going to be hard to stop, and he's going to probably have some home run type plays on USC's secondary. But I think USC wins this game by like 6 points.
Yeah, I do actually agree that this is going to be a win. I think just the home versus away it's just astronomically different is the thing. I do think are we sure that Bryce Underwood's going to be throwing the ball? I mean, like that you bring in Mikey Keene from Fresno State, a very solid quarterback for the Bulldogs. Do we know? I mean, I was talking about this earlier with a friend. There's not a lot of times where a freshman quarterback comes in and he's just that fantastic, who is a true game changer. Obviously, we saw Lagway this year at Florida. He was great, but the team didn't win that much.
Dylan Raiola, I'd argue. I mean, the team wasn't that good.
Nebraska went what 6-6 or 7-5. He wasn't a game changer.
Well, okay, they went 7-6, including the bowl. Which I'd say for a guy like for a team that wasn't really that good around Raiola, like I think that's pretty good.
It's solid. I don't think you can expect a guy to come in like a freshman though. Obviously it's 7 games into the year. I don't think you're going to come in and expect him to beat like a USC type team on the road.
I'd agree. Yeah, and that's why I have USC winning. But if Underwood play, like I don't know, like we have no way to know if he's going to start, but it seems like he is. Like all the media is saying, oh, he's trending. He's looking so good in practice. So I don't know. But I do like Mikey Keene as well. So I don't know. That's a tough question.
I think it's possible that Michigan throws him in. I mean, obviously, Larry Ellison and Dave Portnoy threw $12 million at this kid to stay home in Michigan. I think it's possible that the coaching staff maybe feels pressured to throw him in too early, and he's not ready. Look at Dante Moore at UCLA 2 years ago.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. The way I look at it is if Mikey Keene plays, SC wins this game pretty easily. I think, like, at home, you're playing a QB that, while he's good, his team was terrible last year in Mikey Keene. Yeah. If Underwood plays, I think it's closer. Like I said, I think it's a 6-point game. Yeah. But
who's he throwing the ball to, though? There's no one at Michigan who has real experience is the thing at actually catching the ball. Obviously, Colson Loveland was fantastic this year. They didn't have that many great receivers. It's the same people as last year for Michigan. They're going to be – I think they're just going to be running the ball.
But correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think Loveland played against SC last year. Did he? Was he hurt?
No, I don't think he did. He was still won. Yeah, you're not wrong.
But also, like you mentioned, the defense, like Will Johnson gets a pick 6. That's the difference, right? Yeah. Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant were destroying Miller Moss the entire game. I want to say he was sacked 7 times. I don't know the number.
It was something crazy like that. You're 100% right.
Yeah. So I think you lose some game records on defense, but you add in, a good running, like a serviceable running back to fill in the shoes of Mullings and Edwards. I think Mullings obviously the bigger piece you're losing there. I don't know. I think this game is very hard to predict because we don't know what's going to happen at QB. But I think either way, I see SC winning. That's my closing thoughts.
I do agree. You can go either way. I do think USC wins this, especially it's coming off a bye after, in my opinion, what would be a loss to Illinois, as I said earlier. So I do think it's possible that they're coming motivated. You're well rested, all sorts of that stuff, and you motivate and you beat a Michigan team who beat you, as we said, a little bit controversially, but beat them nonetheless last year in Ann Arbor. So,
yeah, well, moving on, SC will then in their 7th game go to a place they have not won in 14 years, and that's South Bend playing the Fighting Irish, team that's coming off college football national championship game appearance. Chance for the CFP championship. They did not win it, of course. We all know that. They lose their quarterback. They lose some key pieces on defense, like Xavier Watts.
A lot of their secondary is gone.
A lot of the secondary is gone. The secondary was probably the best in the country last year.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Hands down, unless I'm missing anybody. But
I mean, like maybe like Ohio State or like an Oregon, but I'd say Notre Dame.
Yeah. I mean, people forget that the reason why Notre Dame won this game is because Jade Mayava threw 2 pick sixes in critical moments.
Yeah.
If he doesn't do that, SC probably wins the football game. Jeremiah Love was not a big factor in this game, but what
he didn't play the second half. He was
hurt. Yeah, he was hurt in that game, but they ran the ball well overall. They had a good game. I mean, Riley Leonard didn't have,
he was not fantastic. It was because Jadarian Price also ran over them. Notre Dame got whatever they wanted running the ball. They just couldn't see it they just couldn't get anything going passing.
Well, the thing you guys see on the screen is, of course, the starting QB spot is not yet solidified, and it's kind of a battle right now between Steve Angeli, CJ Carr, and Kenny Minchie. I think Steve Angeli is going to get the spot. He's the only guy with any sort of experience, but a lot of, I wouldn't say question marks for Notre Dame because they're such a well-run football program, and they're going to win football games this year, of course, hands down.
I think Freeman's a great coach, too.
Freeman's a great coach. They'll probably make the CFP again. But, of course, like you mentioned, they not only lose Xavier Watts, they lose Benjamin Morris in the secondary. Losing Riley Leonard is going to hurt you because a lot of people said, oh, Riley Leonard, he's a system quarterback. When he came in, he's not very good. He can't throw the football. He had a great season. Like, he transcended any of that backlash he got coming out of Duke. So I think Notre Dame losing him is huge. I don't think it's as big as losing the pieces on defense, but the running back room is the difference because they're bringing back Jeremiah Love. Jadarian Price is coming back. Going back to that stat, last year he had over 100 yards rushing on 12 carries against USC last year. Jeremiah Love had over 1,000 yards rushing. So that's the difference. Yeah. I got Notre Dame winning this game because it's in South Bend and that running back room is just so good. We saw what Michigan was able to do last year against SC. I think Notre Dame is going to do a similar thing in this game.
Look, I think you guys will learn as we progress in the show. I'm a pretty major cynic when it comes to USC football and all things like that. Most USC things I've mostly only seen us lose, except for my freshman year. They have the best running back in the country, in my opinion, Jeremiah Love. He's fantastic. He is a ungodly athlete. He is incredible. We saw him hurdle 10 yards against, not 10 yards, 10 feet against over Kamari Ramsey last year when they came to LA. He is incredible, and I think he is the difference maker when you have a guy who you can hand the ball off to, despite how good we think and how we talked about that defensive line we think is going to be. It's just different. He is a different level player, and I think Notre Dame takes it. I mean, you didn't even mention Jordan Faison returning. He was massive in the CFP for them. They're a very solid team. They lost a lot in the secondary. I think USC, obviously, they ran up the score a decent amount versus Notre Dame. It got to, 35, right? 49, if I'm not mistaken.
Notre Dame won 49-35.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to ask you, though, because we're both across the board. We agree that SC is going to lose this game probably. Yeah. If it was in LA, hypothetically, it's not in LA. Do you think SC wins?
Yeah, I can see them winning it. I think we've talked about it already so much. The difference between home and away for USC is staggering. It is incredible. So I would say if it's in LA, it is a much better chance of winning. I mean, look at last year. That Notre Dame team was much better than USC, and they very much could have won. So
yeah. Well, I want to talk about this comment for a moment, just because it is like sort of a controversy right now about USC. Like, I think it is pretty far fetched, but like there are rumors that SC. You're nodding your head. You don't think it's far fetched?
I don't think it's far fetched of what we've heard of how people like Lincoln Riley and Jennifer Cohen speak about it. It doesn't feel far fetched that like they're going to cancel this rivalry, which sucks. That's terrible.
Really? Well, here's my thing on it. Because the reason why I said far-fetched is because of of what you said. It's been a rivalry for 100 years. Like, canceling it just seems like it wouldn't happen. But crazy things happen. It's NIL era. Like, college football is changing.
Kasey, 3 years ago, USC joined the Big Ten. When did you ever think that would happen?
Good, touche. Good point.
And now they're joining Big Ten.
Good point. Good point. Look, I honestly, like, call me a casual. Like, I think if SC cancels it, it would be great for the program because you're
terrible opinion. Horrendous. Get out of here.
But hear me out. Like, you're scheduling a loss every year. Like, come on. Like,
that's a poor mentality.
What? But
it's like, look, it's the whole tradition of it thing. It's just, in my opinion, it is the 4th best rivalry in college football. I have 10 rivalries ranked, and I have it number 4. It is one of the best rivalries in college football. It's not something that you just cancel. Like, this guy, Will ND, I appreciate you being in the USC fan page. I'm not really sure what you're doing here, but he says, I hope y'all keep playing us. I hope we keep playing you too. I enjoy those games. They're fun. They're enjoyable to watch.
Well, look, I do too. Like, I love a good rivalry, right? But I'm back and forth on this. Like, I see your point. I don't disagree. Like, I'm going
to highlight this. I'm highlighting this comment because it's true. It's hard to schedule with the just 3 non-conference games because obviously you have Notre Dame every year. And so, like, last year they had LSU and Notre Dame, and that's a very tough out of conference. So it's hard to schedule other out of conference games. I agree with that.
I agree. And I think we saw how good SC was against the SEC. Like, you get a little more flexibility maybe if you want. Like, a team like Alabama, is able to schedule, just these cakewalk games every year. They get 3 wins every year. It's a bye game every year. SC can't really do that. I mean, that's why they scheduled those 2 against Georgia Southern and Missouri State that look very easy. But you have – it's just such a complex thing because you can't really say the right thing, right? Like, if you want to get rid of it, you're seen as like, oh, like, you're anti-tradition. But if you want to keep it, like, USC hasn't won in South Bend since 2011. They haven't won much against Notre Dame and LA since then either. I mean, they beat 2022 was the last time they beat Notre Dame, of course, and that was a tough win. And it took Caleb Williams doing everything he could to win that. And I agree with Joe's comment here. Like, only recently it's tipped Notre Dame's way, but college football now is so much different than it was 20 years ago that I don't know if I necessarily see that change. Like, of course, we saw, in the early 2000s, Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush, those guys going into South Bend and winning. But I don't know if I could see that happening now just because, the way NIL is, these guys on SC don't really have an opportunity to necessarily gel and play, in the cold, as a group yet at that point early in the year. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm bringing this comment up. Tony, I apologize, I can't pronounce your last name. Don't want to botch it. I'm not sure about an agreement between non-conference games. That would be interesting. I don't know. That would be interesting.
I don't know. Yeah, I haven't heard that one either. But I think, look, the bottom line is SC does not fare well against Notre Dame. Historically even. They've lost like 20 more games than Notre Dame has won all time. So we can talk about history. But if you stop scheduling Notre Dame, you give yourself a way bigger chance, and I mean way bigger chance of making the college football playoff every year. Because that's a difference between a win and a loss there. It's like 9-3 versus 10-2 potentially in a season like this. So although I love tradition, I love sport, like sports and tradition go hand in hand. You don't have a good chance against Notre Dame year in and year out. That's just the reality.
I disagree with that. It's various how the things, it's just how, I guess, like the program is, the state of it at that point. Obviously, Notre Dame has been really good these last, basically forever. But I just I don't know. I like the rivalry. That's all I have for that.
I like the rivalry too, but and we can move on after this, but it's been so one-sided. Like, I think it's kind of a weak move. I'll be honest. Like, not playing Notre Dame anymore would be kind of weak. It'd be like, oh, we know you're better than us, so we're just gonna it would be like raising the white flag. But at the same time, in the era of college football we're in, where 12 teams make the college football playoff, and you get in with 9-10 wins, and Notre Dame is like at this point like it feels like a guaranteed loss when it's in South Bend. I don't know. I'm gonna leave it at that. Look, I think it's a really good discussion. I'm glad we had it.
Yeah.
So moving on, we talked about Notre Dame. Oh, that's actually before we move on, this is a good point too. I mean, like they were worthy of making the college football championship, but they had a pretty light schedule. Notre Dame. They did not really have a measuring stick game till late in the year. We know what happened against Northern Illinois. We'll hold that against above their heads for the next 10 years if we want.
Go crazy. Lost that.
Yeah, but now it's another opponent USC played last year, and that's Nebraska. The Huskers. SC, of course, beat them by a touchdown, 28-20, and a 2-point conversion last year at home. So, yeah, Dylan Raiola is the main piece that sticks around. That's huge. They lost a couple of big receivers in Jamal Banks and Isaiah Nair. They also lost, a lot of actually, pieces on offense in general. I like Nizaiah Hunter coming in from Cal. I'm from the Bay Area. I watch Cal football a lot. Nizaiah Hunter was very good last year for Cal. They bring in Dane Key and Hardly Gilmore the fourth from Kentucky. Like they brought in some good receiver depth. Their running back depth is the issue for me. They lost Dante Dowdle, and they still have Emmett Johnson, but I don't know how serviceable he is against a USC defensive line that could be one of the best in the country. What are your thoughts on Nebraska?
Look, the reason this is a hard game is because the environment. You're going to Lincoln, Nebraska. They are fantastic fans. We saw last year, they crowded out the Coliseum. If you had to guess, in my opinion, of the Nebraska Red versus USC Red, I would say it was 40-60 Nebraska USC. So I think that's fantastic. I do think they're going to win this game, but that is because I think Dylan Raiola is not all that. I think he's fine. I don't think he's anything more than that is the thing. It's just, I don't think he's that good. I think if USC can get pressure on him, if they can limit the pass game, they'll be completely fine. Obviously, we've talked about the defensive backs. That is a point of question. You limit the pass game, I think you win this game by 2 touchdowns.
You say Dylan Raiola is not that good, and I agree. I don't think he's like a top QB in the country. Like,
I don't even think he's not top 5 in the Big Ten. I wouldn't even say top 8. And now I got to think about it more. I haven't not off the dome, but I got to think about it. But it's just fine.
Well, but my thing is, how much better or how much worse is he than Jane Mayava? Like, that's my thing.
A decent amount. I think Jaden Mayava, because he showed the flashes. Obviously, Mayava's problem was the inconsistency. 3 touchdowns or 3 picks, 2 pick sixes against Notre Dame. How am I blanking? So
well, my thing, like, I think Raiola and Mayava are like kind of in the same tier of QBs. Like, I think they're both decent. They both can win you football games. But Mayava, and to be fair, that was his first start as a USC Trojan last year when he played Nebraska at home. He didn't look very good. Like, it was his first start. He had a few good plays like later in the game, and that came with SC having good receiver depth. Like Deuce Robinson had a really good game. He's gone now, of course, but like a guy like Jacoby Lane, stepped up as well. I don't know. I think USC wins this game by 3. I'll say, like, it's going to be close. It's going to come down to the end.
Yeah. Also, I mean, you got to factor in just Nebraska in November. That's terrible. That's horrible weather. That's kind of the worst. No, all due respect if anyone here is from Nebraska, but that is kind of the worst. I want to highlight something real quick. A lot of Trojan fans think the long streak will eventually take over and even start the season. Do y'all think he'll take over? We've had a little bit of conflicting opinions on this, if I'm not mistaken, because the reports from camp say he's looked good. I don't think he'll take over and start. I think unless Mayava is really disappointing and just does not live up to any sort of expectations, then I could see it, but I don't think so.
Here's an anecdote, right? I mean, last year we had reports, or probably around the same time last year, that Jane Mayava was looking very good in camp, and Miller Moss probably slightly worse, if we're being honest. And Miller Moss still got the job because he knew the offense.
Yeah.
That's like
it was also kind of like it's his turn thing. All due respect to Miller, of course.
Yeah, but you could say the same thing now. It's Mayava's turn to have finally a full season under his belt, right? Like,
not wrong.
I think Longstreet long term is probably your guy, but of course, that's why they brought him in and they're paying him probably a good lump sum of money. But I think the hard part is like Trojan fans want to see Longstreet play, and Longstreet obviously wants to play, but you would probably need a pretty severe, like bad season from Mayava to have him come in. Because think about it, Miller Moss didn't get benched till pretty late in the season, and he had a pretty bad. We could have a whole discussion about was it Miller Moss's fault for certain losses, but the bottom line is Miller Moss was not winning football games in the latter part of the year, right?
Yeah.
Like so the bottom line is I don't see there being any really way, unless Mayava gets hurt, that he doesn't start week 1. And I think he will start until the season goes so south to the point where it's, Lincoln would be so scrutinized not to play Longstreet. And I don't think they'll get to that point given kind of, the schedule's lighter. But we'll see.
I want to highlight 2 things. Jeff Rodriguez says they need to chill out on the weather in Nebraska and Notre Dame. I don't think so. I think they are going to shrivel up in the 40s and 50s. And yes, he also said the worst weather in Utah, Washington, Oregon. I'm from Oregon. I know the Pacific Northwest weather is terrible, especially at that time of the year. It's cold out there, and they have a lot of California kids. That's kind of how it is. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just there's a reason they don't play in South Bend in late November, and going to Nebraska, it's not great. It's definitely nothing like Los Angeles, obviously.
Yeah. I think the environment in Nebraska is going to be tough. And I think too, like we didn't talk much about some of the other guys on the team, but Cortez Mills, Isaiah Mosey offensively, 2 pass catchers, I think could really step up, highly recruited out of the 2024 class. I think this game, I saw a comment earlier about, Nebraska not having that many great receivers, but I think this is still going to be a test for the secondary for SC because you're on the road and they brought in some good transfers. Like, I don't care if these guys aren't super highly ranked. They brought in some veteran transfers, and Isaiah Hunter, one of them, Dane Key, Hardly Gilmore. I think you're going to have some really solid additions to the Nebraska offense. And I think Raiola's finally going to have a team he can connect with. Again, I don't think he's a top QB by any means, but you give him some resources, he's going to fit into the system.
Yeah. They're fine. I don't think I'm just looking at the schedule. None of these teams, until you get to Oregon, which we'll talk about in a sec, have particularly good receivers. I think a phase on it, Notre Dame, I already talked about him. I think he's really good, but Michigan doesn't. Illinois is fine. Michigan State, obviously, I think they're fine. None of them really have great receivers. Neither does Nebraska.
Yeah. And I think too, like back to the weather, like
it's just a weather kid. This is just a weather broadcast now.
Like the proof is in the pudding though. Like I agree. Weather shouldn't be that big of an influence on wins and losses. It shouldn't be, especially when you're a team like SC that like is so high, recruits very highly every year, brings in transfers from places that has cold weather. Like, I guess last year, like Mayava was from like UNLV. So that's not
played at UNLV's from Hawaii.
But like, I mean, you bring in a guy like, Wingfield, he's from Purdue. You bring in the center from Syracuse.
Playing a dome.
John Ray Reed. Yeah. Like Prince Strachan from Boise. Like there's got like that shouldn't be that big of an influence. But SC went out and lost every single cold game last year.
Yeah, it's just the reality. Like I wish it wasn't a factor. I don't think it should be. I think cold weather games are fun, but whatever.
Yeah. Well, now we move on to another maybe lighter opponent for USC, an opponent they did not play last year as an inaugural member of or first year in the Big Ten, Northwestern, and they're going to go to Illinois to play them. Or no, it's at home.
It's at home.
Oh, it is? Okay. I'm sorry. So, yeah, Northwestern, a kind of unpredictable team. They were pretty bad last year, went 4-8. Offensively they weren't good at all. Defensively decent. They, brought in a new coach last year. They finished second to last in the conference in points per game, just ahead of, I believe Purdue probably was last. I don't remember who was last, but they were second to last with 17.8 points per game. They did not put up a lot of yards. So they brought in a couple of new receivers. They brought in Chase Farrell. They bring in Griffin Wild as well. At quarterback, Preston Stone likely. Completely new offense, really across the board. Some changes on defense. They lost Devin Turner on the defensive side. He led them in interceptions. So that's kind of a tough loss for him. I think SC wins this game pretty soundly, though. I think it's 14 to 20 point win.
Yeah, Northwestern no longer has the Big Ten West where they can really capitalize every once in a while and go to the conference championship. The best thing about this program is the temporary field on Lake Michigan in Evanston. I've been trying to get to a game there. My mom went there, but I don't think that's going to happen. Anyways, this should be an easy win. You mentioned this is coming off I'm not going to say difficult. Yeah, I'll say difficult stretch. Nebraska, Notre Dame, Michigan, Illinois. I think this is what you need before you really get into the back third of the season when you get Iowa, Oregon, UCLA. I guess this is technically the back third, but I think they win this one simply. We have similar thoughts on this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's much to talk about. We look at, Northwestern's defense last year was pretty good. Like I already said it. But they also are looking completely different on the linebacker front than last year. They bring in Yanni Karlaftis. Yeah, pretty good player. We'll see how he works out with Wildcats, but I think that's pretty much it on my end for
there's not a lot to say about them. That's the issue.
Yeah, they're an unpredictable team. Like they'll probably be pretty bad, but we don't know how bad. But then I think this is kind of a big measuring stick game potentially for SC, and that's Iowa at home. Iowa has lost some quarterbacks to the portal. Brendan Sullivan was in the portal as of a couple days ago. That's pretty recent news. Of course, they lost Cade McNamara. And then obviously the biggest loss on offense is Caleb Johnson.
Yeah.
He's going to the NFL, top running back in the country, probably top 3 last year. Genty, Jeremiah Love, then I put Johnson 3, probably.
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah. So they're going to have Kamari Moulton play starting running back, probably as of this point.
I assume so.
He looks, they're a running team. They have, historically been pretty good on that front. We'll see how he fits into that system. But the thing that I don't like about Iowa is the fact that their receiving core is just so unpredictable. Like it's a bunch of guys with little experience. We don't know who they're going to be throwing the ball to, really.
Yeah, you can't. It's the same thing with Iowa every single year. I mean, it's still Kirk Ferentz's team. It's still hard to predict offense. I think Iowa fans are a little bit overrating Gronowski's ability to transition from FCS to FBS so seamlessly. Like he was very solid at South Dakota State. I don't think that you can really count on him to immediately come in and contribute. Obviously, Iowa's kind of struggled at quarterback the last couple of years, but this isn't the best solution, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, you bring in a guy, Mark Gronowski, from one of the top FCS programs, and then you stick him on a team that just doesn't really have much receiving depth. And not just depth, like they don't really have any good receivers that have proven themselves at all. I mean, I was looking at their depth chart earlier. Pretty much everybody has like very limited experience. Not that that means they're not good, but you combine that with a guy who's taking the leap from FCS to FBS. I just don't think Mark Gronowski is going to be, a seamless transition. I agree with you on that point. I do think I kind of like this comment as well. I think it could be like a low scoring game. Potentially.
That would be crazy for Lincoln Riley. That would be an insane switch up.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like 13 to 10, but I could see like 23 to 20, like type score maybe. I think SC wins, but I think the cool thing will be is by that point in the year, we'll be able to see if Iowa's offense has done anything up to that point with the new quarterback. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think Iowa, this is a decent game. I remember those comments that Kirk Ferentz kind of made about playing defense. It was relatively aimed at Lincoln Riley. It was a year and a half ago, something like that. And then obviously this is USC's first game versus Iowa. It should be a pretty good one.
Yeah. I mean, Mark Gronowski, like for those that don't know him, because he, before he transferred a little bit more under the radar. I mean, FCS does not have, the biggest, coverage, we'll say, but he played 4 years at South Dakota State and he progressively got better, took a little bit of a dip in 2024, went from 3,000 yards passing to 2,700. But, he's a guy who can throw over 20 touchdowns a year in the FCS. We'll see how that translates. That kind of makes this a hard one to predict once again. Yeah. But we will see. Now we get to probably what could be the biggest game of the year for SC if they do have a very good record going into this, because it's Oregon. And it's not just Oregon, it's Oregon on the road late in the year.
Yeah, look, I don't want, as I mentioned, I'm kind of cynical about USC football. I'm cynical about USC sports in general. I grew up a Ducks fan. All my friends go to Oregon, and I just think they lost a lot of people. I still think that they're going to beat USC pretty decently in this game.
Yeah, and before I talk about Oregon, I want to bring up this comment here because we don't know. We just don't know. Arguably the running back situation this year, we just don't know, with Waymon Jordan, how good he is, first of all. But we also don't know, if Riley, with less receiving depth, we'll say, is going to change his philosophy from throwing the ball, 50 times a game to maybe limiting that to 35 and running the ball quite a bit more. So I don't know. I think it's a good point to be brought up, but I think it is something that is unpredictable. I think he's going to throw the ball a lot. I think Jacoby Lane is going to have more of a red zone. Last year, he was really just playing in the red zone. I think we're going to see him step up and be more of a deep threat really anywhere. And, of course, Mekhi Lemon's a guy you can throw to at any part of the field. Yeah. Prince Strachan as well. I think he's going to want to be the Deuce Robinson of this team, find open space, be a good route runner. So I don't know. But back to Oregon for a moment. We talked about USC's D-line being good. Oregon's D-line is very, very good. Mateo Uigalele,
Uigalele,
whatever you just said. Yeah. It's, couldn't say DJ well either. For Oregon State, but their pass rush is very good. Probably the best in the country. Dante Moore is the wild card. Because like you said, he was rushed into a hybrid starting role at UCLA, and then that didn't work out. He was an unopened can, kind of, he still is, threw a lot of interceptions at UCLA. Their offense changed. We talked about it here on the screen. They have roster departures. They're still elite. Their receiving room, you have Evan Stewart. Yeah. You got Gary Bryant Jr., DeCorian Moore, true freshman, Justice Lowe. It's a good group.
Yeah, look, they also brought, you didn't mention Mekhi Singleton, the Tulane running back transfer. He was fantastic for the Green Wave last year. As you mentioned, it is Dante Moore. That is the question mark. Will he perform? Because obviously Dylan Gabriel, 2 years of Bo Nix, both very solid, good quarterbacks. I don't know if you can get that from Moore. Obviously, he's sat a year behind Gabriel now. He's learned. And he totally could be a Heisman title contending quarterback. There were flashes at UCLA. There were. You can't expect that from him, though. You don't know what you're going to get. As you mentioned, he's an unopened can.
And I think, too, not to, judge him based on other people, but that recruiting class for quarterbacks 2023, it's not shaping out to looking so good. And we'll talk about Nico in a moment. But, Malachi Nelson, ST fans know. It's very 50-50. And I'm not going to judge one guy based on his peers in his class. But it goes to show that he was recruited very highly along other guys who, like a guy like Malachi Nelson, who's not even in the Power 4 anymore. It's something to think about. It's food for thought. Emmanuel Pregnon, we didn't talk about him yet. He's going to be, of course, suiting up for Oregon. So I think SC would
have been one of the best O-line in the country.
Yeah. No, it's going to be tough. And when we talk about D-line, SC's D-line is going to clash against the Oregon O-line. But the thing that looks tough for me is the fact that we haven't really talked about USC's O-line much yet. Of course, a very vulnerable spot last year. They're probably going to be better than last year, just based on who they brought in. They brought in John Ray Reed, who's very likely the starter at center. And then, of course, DJ Wingfield. Elijah Page is a big question mark, though. Alani Noah also. I really like Tobias Raymond. but the rest of the team, we just don't know how they're going to gel. And especially that late in the year, this is the 11th game for USC. We don't really know, how depleted they're going to be with injuries at that point either. So,
yeah, I don't know. The offensive line, it obviously wasn't fantastic last year. I don't know if you can say it's going to be better. Obviously, you lost, like you mentioned, Pregnon to Oregon. If Pregnon were to be here, I think I would definitively say it's going to be a lot better than last year. But
really? You think that, you lose Monheim, but Jean-Ray Reed had a really good year at Syracuse. I'm not saying he's equal.
Yeah, what I'm saying, if you brought in those guys with Pregnon, if Pregnon had stayed, as he said he was staying, and then 2 weeks later he entered the transfer portal. So
I agree. I mean, I think, but he's one guy. That's
he's second team all Big Ten.
I know, but it's tough to predict because we're talking about the depth chart for the O-line, and there could be injuries. We don't. That is hard to talk about, especially at this point in the year. Whereas, especially against a team like Oregon on the road,
look, it's Oregon on the road in late November. It's a very tough place to play. That's just the reality. USC hasn't won there in a decade, is it? Something like that. It's something a long time. They definitely, when I was a fan of them, I was a huge Oregon fan for first 18 years of my life, and did not witness a lot of USC beating Oregon when I was a fan. So, yeah. That's just reality.
I mean, I think Oregon wins this football game, and I know there's people in the chat that would disagree. But again, it's the same thing. It's I don't think history matters on a micro level game to game, but this is an Oregon team that is coming off one of the best seasons in their history. I know they got embarrassed in the Rose Bowl.
It's tough draw to go to Ohio State there.
Yeah, it's tough. And they lost a lot of guys. No denying that. They lost Tez Johnson. They lost Terence Ferguson. They're losing Jordan James, Dylan Gabriel, Josh Connerly, Trayshawn Holden. List goes on. That's only on offense. There's guys on defense they lost as well. But they brought in the pieces that I think will be good enough for them to, again, make another Big Ten push. And that also relies on, like you mentioned, Dante Moore. All that could go to waste if Dante Moore isn't good.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying right now is if Dante Moore is serviceable, this Oregon team will be very, very good. If he is just serviceable, because they have the pieces around him. They have the offensive line. They have the receivers. They probably have the best receiving core in the Big Ten. Hands down.
Are we discrediting Ohio State? I feel like you can't not put Ohio State in there.
You're right. Second. I'll say second. I forgot about Ohio State. Touche.
Yeah.
But
I need to address something real quick, Kasey. I am not an Oregon fan. I am from Portland. I go to USC. Kasey and I both go to USC. I am not a Ducks fan anymore. All my friends go there. I'm not a fan of them. They have beaten us when I went up there I was wearing my Caleb Williams jersey in the student section in Oregon. That is that I got things thrown at me and things yelled at me. I am a USC fan. Let me make that very clear.
Yeah. And look, I mean, Oregon receiving depth is very good. I know people are talking in the chat. Evan Stewart, Gary Bryant Jr., former Trojan.
Moore, the number one wide receiver. You can't not act like Oregon has a good wide receiver core. It's just not. You can't not say that.
Yeah, and
but you can't not say that it's a great receiving core.
I think it's second in the Big Ten. I agree. I completely forgot about Ohio State for some reason, but we mentioned earlier they're not it's not a conference that's very receiver centric. We'll say. Of course you have Jeremiah Smith, but he's kind of an anomaly. But you also have for Oregon, they brought in Malik Benson. They brought in they have Jeremiah McClellan. Even the guys on the bench are good. So I don't know. There's a lot of Oregon haters in here. I'm proud to say I was never
a lot more confident in USC beating Oregon in Eugene than we are. And I hope it comes true, but it's just not realistic. I hate to be that guy. As I mentioned, I'm cynical about this. It's just not realistic.
I think it can happen, but I think you're going to have to rely on a lot of things going right. You're going to have to really just hope you can get to Dante Moore. If you can get to Dante Moore, I think SC wins this game.
I think, shut down the run too. because that's always been Oregon's bread and butter.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, their run game's going to look different this year. With Jordan James gone, they have Mekhi Hughes, who's supposed to be pretty good.
Very good.
just a little bit good.
Really good year at Tulane.
Yeah, and I mean, look, we addressed this. Like
we already talked about this.
We don't think that like Dante Moore has proven himself.
It's 2 years ago. What he was 2 years ago, it's a different person. That's all.
Yeah, but so we'll see. Anyways, let's move on to another game that SC fans want to win every single year. I mean, they want to win every game, but this is a game that feels a little bit bigger, and that's UCLA. And UCLA, the Bruins, are coming to the Coliseum this year. They look very different than last year. Of course, they'll have a new quarterback. Maybe it's Nico Iamaleava. How do you say his last name? I don't know. Joey Aguilar, though, is the QB right now if Nico doesn't come over. Of course, last year was Chase Garbers. It was a close game between SC and UCLA. It was late in the year. It was cold. It was at the Rose Bowl, but SC pulled it out. But Joey Aguilar, he's kind of he's an Appalachian State transfer, kind of just I don't know much about him. He's kind of a system QB. But they're still navigating, new coach in Deshaun Foster, trying to get some recruits. They look very different on offense. What do you see this game looking like?
Yeah, it very much. I mean, I don't think Nico's going to go to UCLA. It's very possible he does, but I don't think they have the money to get. I mean, $4 million. He was asking for $4 million from Tennessee. I don't think UCLA has $4 million for him, so I don't think he's going to go there. But USC, this is a game they should win so easily. This should be such an easy. It's at home. Obviously, it's a little different because it's UCLA, USC. It's the same city, but they should win this so easily. Jalen Berger is a fine running back. They are very fine. They are a fine team. There shouldn't be anything. This should be a blowout, is what this should be.
It should be. It very well should be. And somehow it's always not. 2 years ago, of course, UCLA won. That was another game that SC should have won. And last year,
would have beat him 21. Was that 17? How much was it?
Last year or 2 years ago?
Maybe
it was a pretty one-sided game. It was a couple touchdowns. Of course, losing Carson Schweschinger is a really tough loss to have. We saw them lose Leatu Latu, and then recover well with a good defense last year. I mean, UCLA's defense was pretty good. I'll give them that. And even SC fans could admit that. They held SC to 19 points. That's not super easy to do. But there's a lot of changes on defense. Their entire secondary this season is going to be new, pretty much. And most of their linebacker core as well. They actually have the 6th best running defense in the country, so we'll see how that translates with the new guys. But SC should win this by, 2 touchdowns? In theory, but it's, this game's somehow always close.
It should at least be 2 touchdowns, in my opinion. I also think, I heard, just going to basketball real quick, I heard that UCLA paid Donovan Dent, the New Mexico transfer, $2 or $3 million.
Wow.
So I feel like just going back to Nico a little bit, there's no way they can afford him. There's just no way. So
where does he go?
I'm seeing this from Will Indy. I saw Tulane as well. It was a weird group that On3 reported. It was North Carolina, Tulane, and UCLA, and North Carolina is reportedly out on him. So UCLA and Tulane, that was a weird place.
I mean, even USC was in that mix for a minute, and then there was shut down that they were not actually in the mix. I don't know. I mean, I think UCLA has the money. I don't think they want to pay it though. And I think too, I just don't think they let's be honest. They're a basketball school.
They're a basketball school. You also have to take into account Nico is clearly, he's clearly an eye over we type guy. It's clearly he wants to get to the league and that's about it. He's demanding money from the team in Tennessee, that is, who set him up pretty well, he was a fine quarterback last year. He only had 9 touchdowns. He had 19 total touchdowns, and 9 of them came in the SEC, and 4 of which were against Vanderbilt. He's not that good. He's fine.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think if UCLA brought him in, they would have a decent season. They would be, I could see a 6-6 year from him, but are they really going to pay whatever it is, $4 million for 2 extra wins potentially? I think they win 4 games this year.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's also, I mean, the talent around them is so different. Like compared to Tennessee and UCLA. I mean, look at they were kind of a run heavy offense last year, and then they would let Nico throw it. Tennessee, that is, but it's not the same at UCLA. It's not even close.
No, it's not. I mean, they're a defensive minded team year in and year out. We've seen the past few years. They're trying to build back the recruiting prowess with Deshaun Foster. I think it for the sake of their future with NIL. And look, I don't know how big their collective is, but I think it'd be smart to not get him. I don't think they're in a position to win. And I want to go to a slightly unrelated subject, but I think given the fact that we've just finished all 12 games, floor and ceiling, I think this is a big conversation. And people in the comments could chime in here as well. I think the floor is 7 wins, like the floor, the absolute floor. Yeah. Don't come at me. I think that's the worst case scenario. It's an improvement from last year. I think the ceiling 10-2 and the losses to Notre Dame and Oregon are the two there.
Yeah.
Could they go 11-1? Maybe, weirder things have happened, but I think the ceiling for me is 10-2.
Yeah, I'm like thinking about it now. The ceiling, in my opinion, is definitely 10-2. The floor, I could see losses to Michigan, Notre Dame, Oregon, Illinois, and Nebraska. I'd even maybe throw in Iowa. Maybe.
I don't know.
I'll agree with you that I think 7-5 is the floor. And if it's 7-5, Lincoln Riley should be fired. Let's be honest.
That's you know what?
Maybe that's a hot take, but.
Well, here's the thing, right? Do you fire Lincoln Riley knowing that the 26th class could be your best class as a program ever? And if you fire Lincoln, you probably lose all those guys. Like, let's be real.
Yeah. Maybe you promote Lynn to DC. Maybe the defense is great. It's just the offense.
So you would fire him even knowing that? Like, knowing that Chad Bowden might maybe leave. Knowing that Danton Lynn would probably leave. Knowing that Eric Henderson would probably leave.
I wouldn't assume that Chad Bowden would leave.
You don't think so?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of money.
I agree with that, but I think
he's not technically correct. Riley, he's not obviously not part of the coaching staff.
Well, no, but I think the big draw for him coming here, and this is just speculation, but I think the big draw is being able to oversee a Lincoln Riley team, because I think Lincoln Riley, the issue with him these past few years is that it's a lot of bark and not a lot of bite. You know, I can recruit well. I can make a good team on paper. I can, coach the guys well in practice. But when it comes to game speed, I'm going to make the wrong decision and lose the game in the last moment. That's what I've seen from Lincoln Riley. I think that is very fixable if you bring in the right people. And I think bringing in a guy like Chad Bowden fixes that. We saw
that doesn't fix the end of game, like time management problems, though.
No, but I think it allows him to take the weight off of Lincoln's shoulders, because Lincoln, in these games that he was losing by 1 score late in games, it felt like he was trying to do too many things at once. I'm going to call plays. I'm going to do this. I'm going to worry about this. I'm going to do all that. I don't think it directly impacts losing by 3 points to Michigan early in the season. But I think if you have a guy like Bowden who can take the weight off of Lincoln, maybe you don't lose a game like that. That's what I'm trying to say. I think we can agree on that.
Yeah. That's fair.
Here's another point. This is a good point, I think, because I think the portal was kind of weird for
SC. It was underwhelming this year.
It was weird, right? Like, I think running back, kind of lateral. Like, I think Woody was so good. I think it honestly got worse.
Very much lateral.
I think worse, maybe. I mean, you bring in some depth, I think. Like, if a guy gets hurt, I'm confident someone else could step up. I think the O-line got better, I will say. I think the O-line gets better. Maybe you don't agree with me there, but I'll stick by that. But I think, to their credit, to devil's advocate, I think they're banking on a lot of young guys getting better, and that maybe relieved the stress of the transfer. Like, for example, they brought in one receiver, Prince Strachan, but they're also knowing that a guy like Jacoby Lane and Lemon, both those guys are going to be better, Yeah. So I think it is underwhelming, but at the same time, they have the confidence in who they have, but they also did lose some pieces. But that's a whole other topic, because I think a lot of the guys they lost were kind of valid. Like Zachariah Branch wasn't progressing. Deuce Robinson wasn't just getting – he just wasn't getting looks, you know what I mean? So it's like – I think it's kind of it's a really tough conversation.
Yeah. USC priority and this. We talked about that a little bit earlier in the show because the depth of this running back room it's impressive. And I think there's a lot of solid guys, but you can't bank on someone from JUCO instantly being the number one guy. That's just the reality. It's just such a leap. Going from JUCO to the Big Ten is pretty different, to say the least. So,
yeah. Look, I love Waymon Jordan. I've watched his tape. Very skilled. He looks like he could be, a very good running, like not just like a piece that they could slot in like usual. Yeah. I think he could be like the go-to guy. But again, it's JUCO. Like the skill is there for sure. It's not like like if he was FCS, we would be having the same conversation. If he was D2, we'd be having the same conversation. This is JUCO. Yeah. This is like a whole step down. I think
obviously there's different reasons you go JUCO and stuff like that, but
still. Yeah, 100%. But we just don't like the whole point of the show. We prefaced it by saying like we don't know who's going to be healthy also like week 12, So like there's a lot of question marks and a lot of uncertainty, and I think that kind of goes with them not attacking the portal that much because we just don't know what this team will look like with guys like Braylon Shelby now in his junior year, a guy like Jacoby Lane kind of being able to be that regular receiver. There's a lot of question marks with this team. I think the one thing we can agree on is this SC team is very talented on paper. And I think they're more talented on paper this year than they were last year.
I agree with that. I've talked to you about this. I am still just, Riley has completely, it's lost like the picture stuff like that. I just think he's fine. He showed he's just fine as a play caller. When he doesn't have that generational quarterback, it's just not as good. His offenses just aren't as good. So it banks on Maava making lots of plays that we don't know that he can.
Yeah. I mean, it's a weird season too, because that in 2026, pending any, last second changes, well, not even last second. If you lose these commits, you're kind of screwed for 26. But assuming a good chunk of these guys come, that 2025 is kind of a bridge year, right? Like, you're not really expecting SC to win the Natty in 25. Like, they could make the CFP. That's pretty realistic.
Yeah, that's possible. But 26 goes 7-2 with the losses to Oregon, Notre Dame. I think that's CFP.
But I think 26, like, potentially first year if you saw Longstreet, potentially, a very elite group of young guys being able to take a leap. Like, I think 25 is a year that is pivotal, not just to like show that they can set up those pieces for 26, but also to keep those recruits. So I think 100%, a lot of question marks.
I think you need to win at least 8 to 9 games to keep the majority of the recruits.
Yeah, I think it's fair. Yeah. And I mean, our ceiling and floor are kind of around that number. So
I want to answer this one real quick because we're kind of winding down here. The students, Riley out. What do you think about that? I don't think so. Not yet. There's definitely a lot of frustration, but I wouldn't say completely out yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like, Lincoln Riley is such a polarizing person for interesting reasons. Like, he's not like a guy who like publicly shames his players. He's not a guy who's super outspoken about everything. Yeah. But he's very polarizing because he's a very micromanaging person. He wants to do everything his way. And I respect it. I mean, he's earned his props over the course of his career. But the issue is it's not worked. Like, let's be real. They've been bad. They've been very mid or bad since he's come to USC. I think
you missed out on the 1 year. I was a freshman when Caleb won the Heisman. That was very fun. I went to the student lottery to go to the Pac-12 championship. It was fun for, that was fun for a quarter, but
I think if Lincoln Riley is bad under Chad Bowden's watch, absolutely get him out of there, because we saw what Chad Bowden was able to do at Notre Dame. And not only that, but like I talked about it earlier in great detail. Lincoln Riley is a guy that wants to do everything himself, and now he has the ability to focus on his craft, and his craft is developing top offenses in the country. A guy like Chad Bowden is going to take care of a lot of the other things, like recruiting, like, lineups, like a lot of stuff, that goes under the radar. Lincoln not having to do that is going to be huge. And I think if he doesn't thrive having that time and having the ability to just take a step back, I think we got a problem.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Yeah. Let's take a look at some of these other comments. This could be an interesting point. I mean, we saw that recruit today shut down. I don't want to butcher his name, but the D lineman from Modern Day.
Yeah,
he shut down his recruiting, so we'll see.
I'm not going to trust any. I don't trust any recruiting until they get on campus or unless USC wins 8 to 9 games. That's just the reality. I
will say to Priority's point though, I do love the commitment to recruiting locally, and I think
I agree with that.
It's very retro vibes. Like it's very like this feels kind of like 2004. Like
I just think because they were going for like the wrong guys is the thing. Oh, Kasey's for like they were going from guys from like Georgia and stuff like that. That's not why.
Yeah, I mean there's still some like Gus Cordova.
Like, and, Elijah Griffin obviously commit right now.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think this year like we'll see what Jakeem Stewart can do. He's kind of like the one main freshman I'm looking at. Corey Sims, maybe. They have some receiver depth.
Pretty solid, pretty underrated guys.
Yeah, and I mean when I say they have receiver depth, we don't know how good some of these guys will be, but they have bodies. Like they have guys who can step up. But yeah, we're nearing the end of our show. We'll go 4 more minutes, the hour and a half mark. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's definitely going to be a bridge year.
Yeah,
talk about that, but I think importantly though, like this is a team that could get to the CFP, and we know how unpredictable that could be. So, yeah.
I'm looking at this comment. I completely agree. I do think that Riley kind of needs a guy who can help him when there needs to be time management type stuff. Because we saw he basically lost the game versus Penn State. They had timeouts to burn as USC was marching down the field, and they just didn't use them. And of course, Miller Moss throws the pick. So I do completely agree with this.
And I mean, look, Miller Moss is a great guy. He deserved to start, very likely.
Yeah.
But Lincoln was it took him a lot to get rid of that leash. And he was so confident early on that Moss was going to be that guy. Like he said, he was so convinced. And look, it's hard to predict it. These are young guys. Moss never really had an opportunity like that before. But fans saw the writing on the wall early on, right? Like after that Penn State game, throws late picks. There's no excuse at that point,
I'm just trying to think of other I think we'll be able to tell pretty early in this season if USC is legit, because obviously as we kind of mentioned, we're going through it. The games slowly ramp up in talent wise, so. If we see early cracks, then the season it's gonna go downhill pretty quickly, in my opinion.
It all comes down to the D line, the O line, and the running backs. Those are my top. We know the receivers are good. We know Mayava is pretty good. I think those 3 facets are the most critical parts. We don't really know. Again, the Waymon Jordan argument could be talked about for hours, but I think we can all agree we don't know how good he's going to be. We know he'll probably be good.
Sorry to cut you off. The reality is just when we're this far out from the season, we don't know how any of these guys are going to play.
Yeah.
That's just how it is.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. And even with the D-line having depth, it's got to be able to stick together and go against some really tough O-lines in the Big Ten. There are some good ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like this is an interesting point as well. I mean, he did make it harder for Miller Moss too, because he was 100%. Making him throw the ball 50 times a game, with 2 elite running backs in the backfield.
Yeah. I 100% think that Miller Moss is going to go out and ball at Louisville. I'm sad he didn't work out here because he's a great guy.
Yeah, I think he could as well. It's a weaker ACC conference. Very well could happen. But we're going to just about wrap things up here. Again, if you weren't here at the beginning, we really appreciate you guys tuning in, whether or not you agree with everything we say, because this is a discussion-based platform here. Yep. We're both students here. We have inside access. We're very fortunate to be able to go to practices occasionally and whatnot. So definitely excited to talk more. This was kind of our first episode talking just about the schedule. So if you missed anything, go back and rewind. But yeah, Kasey, Kazliner, Terence, Holton. Terence, do you have anything to add there?
No, we're going to be coming live every Monday at 7 a.m. Pacific. We appreciate all the support. Jeff Rodriguez, Trojan Fight. We appreciate you guys. Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, 7 p.m. though, not a.m.
7 p.m. 7 p.m. Did I say a.m.? I meant p.m.
I'll be asleep at that point.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah, but a lot to come. Next few weeks, we'll have coverage as well over the summer. Summer practices are going to be pretty ramped up. Recruiting, obviously, is a big part of that window as well. So, yeah, so that's just going to about do it from us, though. Thank you guys so much. Make sure to follow us on socials. Our Twitter's up there. Instagram for me is the same username. We'll have updates throughout the season. Like we mentioned, we'll be going to practices. At least I will pretty regularly. Not really for spring for me, but or summer, but definitely next season. So yeah, follow us for updates. And thanks again for tuning in. First episode with the new tandem here. So appreciate you guys, and that'll do it for us.
Bye.